This video goes through pulling items from the rack. So from our inventory flow chart, if there's no room for something, it goes into our straight to floor backlog. And then eventually an inventory manager or an inventory specialist will pull the clothing to make room. So this zooms in on that process a little bit. So when pulling clothing from the rack, we want to pull things that have been there for the longest. We want to pull the oldest stuff out first. Every so often, there are things that are really bad style and condition that just got missed through the process. We would still pull that, but for the most part, we should be pulling the oldest stuff from the rack. When we pull it, then we ask ourselves, is it good? And good means it's good style and condition, which means that we would still buy it today if a customer brought it in, and it has been out on the floor for less than 90 days. So if it's good, for example, if it's a great item that we just bought 2 or 3 weeks ago, we don't want to clearance it, so we'll backstock it normally, and this will just go into a backlog. Typically, if we find that we're constantly pulling good stuff from the floor, then what that probably means is we need to expand the section. It means maybe our section is too small and we're buying so much stuff in that we're not selling it quickly enough. This doesn't always mean that, so we have to take into consideration the time of year it is, but that could be an indication we need to expand the section. If we can't expand the section and we're still constantly pulling things that are good because we're buying in so much that we're not selling through it, then we should maybe look to do an event or focus this item on our end caps or table displays or various things like that. Okay, for pulling clothing from the rack, and if it's not good, so if it's either bad style or condition or has been on the floor for 90 days or more, then we have to ask a second question, is it in demand? And in demand means that the clothing is in demand this time of year and customers are currently shopping for it. If it is in demand, then we want to do price point clearance. And the price point clearance is explained in a different video more, but basically this is just a rack or two up at the front of the store usually that we have really aggressive price points on, and because the items are in demand, they should fly off the rack pretty quickly. This saves us time from having to do a more traditional clearance cycle on the clothing. If it's not in demand, then we're going to backstock it for clearance. So for example, if this is heavy outerwear for some reason in the middle of summer, we don't want to put it on a price point rack because then it's probably not going to sell. It's just going to get old and take up space. So we're going to backstock it for clearance. And we usually have 2 big clearance cycles over the course of the year, and it would sell them. So when things are pulled from the sales floor, there are 3 different areas it could go. Good items get backstocked for an event or a busy season. Not good items go to price point clearance if they're in demand, or they get backstocked for a regular clearance if they're out of demand. And that is it for pulling items from the rack. One other note when pulling items from the rack that's important is if you're an inventory specialist, an inventory manager, and you're doing this for the next few days, you want to pull a little bit extra. So for example, let's say there's 30 women's shorts in the straight to floor backlog. If you only do this 2 times a week, and if it's going to be 3 or 4 days until you do this again, you probably want to pull maybe 50 women's shorts. So we need room for 30, but pull 50 so that way you can take care of the replenishment backlog and you've created space. So for the next few days, as employees are putting out new items that we bought in, there's space to put them. If you only pulled what we needed, and then if we bought in 5 of that item that day, they're going to run out of room. It's going to go back into the backlog. So you always want to pull just a little bit extra. You don't want to pull too much extra so that our racks are half empty and we miss out on sales, but you want to pull just enough to kind of get by. This is going to take some trial and error, just getting used to the flow of product in and out of the store. So just do your best, learn from it, and eventually you'll get it.